Ciao e benvenuti! In this lesson, we look at the present tense of Italian regular verbs belonging to the third conjugation group, verbs ending in IRE. A worksheet with the exercise included in this video, plus an extra exercise, is available to download. Please check the description box for the link to the PDF file. Among the most frequently used regular verbs ending in ire, we find applaudire, bollire, coprire, dormire, mentire, partire, seguire, sentire. Let's look first of all at the endings for the present tense conjugated forms of this verb group. The singular endings are o for the first person, I for the second person informal, and e for the second person formal and for the third person. The plural endings are iamo for the first person, ite for the second person, and ono for the third person. The notable thing about the conjugation pattern of this group of verbs is that all the present indicative endings, except for ite, the ending for the second person plural, are the same as those of verbs ending in ere, the second group of verbs we introduced in last week's lesson. For the full conjugation of the present indicative of verbs ending in ire, let's take verb dormire, to sleep, and conjugate it. We first isolate the verb root like we've done with verbs in the first and second group. In the case of verb dormire, we remove the ire ending and then we get the root dorm. Now we add the endings for the present indicative. Io dormo, tu dormi, lei dorme, lui dorme, lei dorme. Noi dormiamo, voi dormite, loro dormono. The third conjugation group includes a subgroup of verbs ending in ire, regular in principle, but which present irregularities in the present tense forms of the first, second, third person singular and third person plural. The peculiarity of these verb forms is the presence of the infix isc in between their stem and their present tense endings. Here are some of the verbs ending in ire which require the isc infix. Capire, costruire, finire, preferire, pulire, spedire. When I introduced isc verbs earlier, I described them as a subgroup. In reality, they make up the majority of verbs ending in ire. Another interesting fact is that some verbs behave both as regular ire verbs and as isc verbs. They have a double conjugation. Applaudire and mentire, for example, are two of these verbs. Now let's see how to conjugate verbs belonging to the isc group. We start with capire, to understand. After getting the stem cap, we proceed to conjugate the verb, but this time we need to add the isc infix to the forms that require it, the first, second and third person singular and the third person plural. Now adding the endings for the present indicative, we get io capisco, tu capisci, lei capisce, lui capisce, lei capisce, noi capiamo, voi capite, loro capiscono. You will have noticed that the consonant group sk in the infix isc changes sound depending on the vowel following it. In fact, as a rule, when this consonant group is followed by vowels a, u, or o, as in this case, we get the sound sk, whereas when it is followed by vowels e or I, as in this case, we get the sound sh. If you want to know more about this rule, check out my video on special letter clusters and foreign letters, which I'll link on the screen and in the description box. Now that we've clarified the sound changes happening here, let's conjugate capire one more time. Io capisco, tu capisci, lei capisce, lui capisce, lei capisce, noi capiamo, voi capite, loro capiscono. Now another example. Let's conjugate verb preferire, to prefer. Once again, we first get the root prefer, insert the isk infix where needed, and then add the endings for the present indicative. Io preferisco, tu preferisci, lei preferisce, lui preferisce, lei preferisce, noi preferiamo, voi preferite, loro preferiscono. You might be wondering whether it's possible to tell which verbs ending in ire are isk verbs. The answer, I'm afraid, is no. The only way to know isk verbs is by memorizing them. Now follow the example in the first row and then write down the present tense forms of the regular verbs ending in ire, including 2 isk verbs listed below. You can pause the video to do this exercise and then resume it to check the answers. You can also use the worksheet linked in the description box. There you will also find a second exercise. Answers to both exercises are available in the description box. And that's all for this lesson. If you have enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Grazie e arrivederci!